Okay, everybody, so welcome. We're going to start in a moment. Thank you very much all for joining us. We're going to start in a moment on talking about our favourite subject here in the UK, Brexit. Some absolutely critical updates. I'm just going to start the Facebook Live as well. Spare me one moment while I do that. So welcome to our friends on Facebook as well. So on the Expanders Facebook page, we've now got live also. So we're now live from the Zoom meeting. So thank you all to those that have attended there and to those that are live on our Facebook. The reason for doing the Facebook is because it's a lot quicker to get something up to you, updated. If you want to come back and look at it, it's easier to come back and do that straight away after, and you can see that. The only downside is you won't get the presentation there just yet. So that's where we are at the moment. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, we're going to start. One more minute, we're going to start and we're going to start making our way through. If everyone, there is a chat function. If someone could just put in the chat function that they can hear me, well, that would be amazing. If those who are on Facebook Live can tell me they can hear me as well, that would be amazing. Otherwise, I'm just talking and no one can hear me. Excellent. Thank you. Audio's good. So, yeah, I've moved the mic actually. So it's no longer on the desks, which is why I was a bit worried about it. So, so it's good that it's up here out the way. The downside is I'm probably going to knock myself out with it. Okay, so good. Okay, we've waited for a couple of minutes. We are going to get started if everyone is okay with that. So welcome and thank you very much for joining me on our Brexit update. Now, Brexit is one of those things that just seems to have gone on and on and on. I do apologise on behalf of our government that they've made a right pig's ear of this. It's gone on far longer than it needed to, but nonetheless, we are where we are and I'm here to give you a little update on it, mainly with some good news, which I've not been able to do for a while. Okay, so presenter today, I am your presenter. So thank you to all those that have joined us. If you were also on our French VAT webinar yesterday, thank you for joining on that. I do apologise there was two in 2 days. That certainly wasn't the case. There is a chat room that some of you have already found, and we've got the GE Expanders group as well, as I've already mentioned. For those that have just joined, there's an Expanders, GE Expanders Facebook group where you can join us. It's Facebook Live. We're live from there at the moment. You can ask questions as well. We've got an amazing webinar series that we are putting together. Every week we're going to have a webinar that is basically focused on helping you to expand and to expand more successfully. So that leads on to we're here to successfully expand you. So anything we can do to make that a success, then we're here to do. You'll see there's a lovely little picture of me at Times Square. I come over to the States about once a month, and that was when I headed to New York in Times Square. Do you know, there's something about Times Square that I find absolutely fascinating. Just the hustle, the bustle, the lights, the energy of the place is just amazing. Anyway, I'm off to Seattle this week. So I fly to Seattle on Saturday. I fly back on Tuesday. I'm there for a couple of days. If anyone's around in Seattle and they want to meet up for a coffee, then I'd love to meet you. Got a couple of punishing days with, and punishing as in back-to-back meetings. I'm not there for a punishment. I should be pretty careful what I say, shouldn't I? But I'm more than willing to meet if you're around. Okay, so agenda. We're going to quickly cover off what Brexit is. We're going to quickly cover off how did we get here, what's the latest, what happens next, and what it means for you. Really simple, real straightforward. I'm hoping this is going to be no more than 15 minutes, depending on how much I talk. So I'm hopefully going to just go through this as quickly as possible, give you all the information you need, and then you can ask questions at the end if everyone's happy with that. So what is Brexit? So Brexit, back in 2016, the UK government said, well, UK population, do you want to stay in the EU or don't you, in a referendum? And the UK public at 51% to 49% said they did want to leave the EU. So what then ensued was a little bit of period where nothing really happened. No one really bothered to do anything, I would say. However, what we did is we got to a point where we were saying, right, we now actually got to leave. Some dates were put in the diary of when that was going to happen. So originally, the original date was the 29th of March, 2019. So we were originally meant to leave on that date. But what happened is no one could agree on anything. The EU gave us a deal. The UK government didn't like a deal. The population didn't like the deal. No one liked the deal. So we went backwards and forwards. We then set a new date for June. We then set a new date for October, can you believe? So in October, 31st of October, there was a new date for us to leave or for Brexit deal to have been done for the separation agreement. Nothing still got done by then. And then a new date was set for the 31st of January. Now, what's happened in that period is that the UK government could not make a decision. And the reason they could not make a decision was because in the Houses of Parliament, very similar to the US-based system, you know, the current government needs a majority to make things happen. Okay, and the UK government didn't have a majority. So what Boris Johnson did is he called a general election for December, which has only happened twice, I think, in order to try and get a majority to pass the bill. He tried 3 times to get his bill to pass, and he couldn't because the opposition government said no. So he went to an election, and basically that's where we are now. So I'm sort of covering this as we go. So basically, we've got to this point now where the UK government has a majority, which means that Boris Johnson can basically put through what he wants and he's going to get away with it. So we have basically got till the 31st of January, which is when we leave the EU. Now, don't all sit there and think, panic stations, we're leaving the EU. Well, we are, but we're not. Now, the reason I say that is because there's a number of different things at play there. And what we need to do is just flush those out. So basically, UK referendum 2016, the latest deadline is the 31st of January when we are supposed to leave or have a deal in place. So that's where we are. So that basically is how we got here. Now, what's the latest news, which is what you basically all want to hear. And I want to hear a big old drum roll because the UK government, Boris Johnson, does have agreement with his party, which does mean that they've agreed a deal with the EU, which does mean it's highly likely that we will leave the EU on the 31st of January this year. Now, when I say leave, we're not actually going to leave. I know that sounds a little bit strange, but basically what's going to happen is on the 31st of January is we've agreed terms. So we've agreed terms in which we're going to leave. Now, there are several things in play that take a bit. So basically, there's originally in the original plan, there was a 2-year separation after the original. But what Boris Johnson has agreed is that we will leave the EU with a deal on the 31st of January. However, we've basically got until the 31st of December this year to basically put trade agreements in place before we're left to it on our own. Now, that's the biggest piece, is basically we leave on the 31st of January, but essentially nothing happens until the 31st of December. And that's what you have to remember. So they're the key dates we've now got in our hands. So what happens next? So the 31st of January, we're going to leave, and all being well, I'm 99% certain, I think so is everyone else, that that's a done deal and it's all going to happen. So that's all absolutely fine. We're waiting for a couple of signatures on a couple of bits of paper between the EU and the UK government. Now, clearly something could happen in that period, but the likelihood is that it won't. So what's going to happen is between the 31st of January and the 31st of December, we now need to basically create trade agreements with different countries. So obviously one of the first ones we're going to do that with is the EU. Now, at the moment, the deal we've got with the EU is that we have free trade of movement of goods. So where this comes for you is that goods come in and you can move it all around the EU and there's no additional custom charges. Now, essentially, what they're going to try and negotiate is exactly that. All right. Now, there's a chance that when we get down there, we don't have a negotiation, we don't have a deal in place, at which point it comes to standard terms of the World Trade Organization. All right. Now, the important thing to say is there's no change in the regulations between now and the 31st of December. All right. So we have an 11-month, almost said 9 then, that's crazy, right? We've got 11-month transitional period in where we've got to create the deals. Now, the idea of creating the deals is we also got to create negotiations with the US. So the majority of our clients are US based, which means we now need to create trade agreements with the US. Now, at the moment, the World Trade Organization, essentially there's set tariffs. At the moment you pay customs coming in. So actually, a lot of those agreements are in place, but you have that agreement with the EU. You don't have that agreement with the UK. So that's where the agreements all need to change with all the countries around the world. Now, some can be done in block. For example, the EU, we can do that with the 27 countries. It's really straightforward. Now, when I say straightforward, I mean, it took them nearly 3 years to negotiate Brexit. So how long it's going to take them to negotiate trade agreements, I don't know. There's also a lot of things to do with the legal and European regulations, and it's not just the free trade movement of goods, which is obviously what you and I mainly want to happen. So basically what we're looking to happen now is 31st of January, we split from the EU. We've then got until the 31st of December to create those trade negotiations. And then on the 1st of January next year, we're left to our own devices. Hooray! And we're out of the EU and we all move forwards. So that's where we are. And that's what happens next. And what does that mean for you? Well, I think the key thing to say is that for now, nothing really. It's business as usual. So your agreements are all going to stay exactly the same. The way in what everything that happens is going to stay the same. Everything is going to be the same until the 31st of December this year. Now, I've put Q4 question mark there, and the reason for that is quite simple, because we don't need to do anything until Q4. And the reason we don't need to do anything until Q4 is because we have no idea what the trade agreement is going to be. The chances are we won't know what the trade agreement is going to be probably until the 30th of December this year. However, we will start putting plans in place from the beginning of Q4 to look at what happens if we have a trade agreement, if we don't have a trade agreement, and what you need to do as a seller to basically limit your liability over that period to make yourself as efficient as possible. All right, so that's what we're going to be looking at over that period. So what it means for you, keep an eye on the 31st of January. If there's any changes or any issues, we will let you know straight away. But as it stands, 31st of January EU with a transition period till the 31st of December. You don't need to do anything now, but you do need to probably do something around Q4, at which point we'll start discussing that with you. Okay, now I have literally raced through that. It's pretty straightforward. Brexit, we know what Brexit is. We're leaving the EU. How did we get here? Well, we know that. The latest basically is we've got an agreement with the EU. We'll be leaving on the 31st of January with a deal. However, we've got until the 31st of December to create trade agreements and trade negotiations. And then from the 31st of December, that's when we then need to start looking at what we need to do going forwards. And basically Q4 is going to be absolutely critical in order to making that happen smoothly. Now, I know I've just talked for 15 minutes, bosh. However, I think it's key for you guys now so that you can ask any questions. Feel free to ask questions away. You may say, that's been super clear, Andy. Thank you very much. Done. Then we're all done. But if you've got any questions, please feel free to add those into the group chat and I can answer those questions for you. Before you go, there's the contact details there. If you have any further questions, you can basically go to the Facebook Live and you could make comments there. So for those on the Facebook Live, if you've got some comments, you can make some comments there. For those that are on the Facebook Live, let me just give out the contact details. So obviously you can go to our website, globalecommerceexperts.com, relatively straightforward with a hyphen in between the E and C. If you need to contact us via email, the email address is support@globalecomexperts.com, or you can call us and speak to your account manager, no problems at all. Okay, so question come in. Is the VAT agreement with EU also in the same package? Yeah, that should be in the same package with the distance selling threshold with the movement of goods. So there will be some changes to VAT without any shadow of doubt, but it should stay pretty much the same going forwards, we hope, after December. I mean, for now, it's exactly the same up till 31st of December, but actually from 31st of December, there will probably be some changes, but we would expect, it's highly likely that it will be free trade of movement along with VAT as well. There'll be a distance selling threshold. There is no guarantees with that because all of the negotiations are on the table and it depends on what the UK government and the EU government basically want and the deal they do. There's no guarantees. That's why we'd have to update that nearer Q4. But we would suspect that if there's a free trade movement of goods, the VAT threshold would stay, but there is no guarantee of that. Okay, any more questions? Okay, fantastic. I can't see any more questions coming in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions that are immediate, then obviously you can email us, or you can go to the Facebook group GE Expanders, and you can comment on the video there and we'll be able to answer the questions there. But you can also contact the office on support@globalecomexperts.com. Hopefully that's given you as much information you need. I've tried to keep that as short and as simple as possible with the key facts. If I've not answered everything, you've got questions, please do so. Apart from that, thank you very much for your time. For those on Facebook, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you on Facebook again soon. That's it from us. For those people that are on the webinar, I'm just going to say thank you very much to all of you. Thank you very much for giving your time, and we are all done. Thank you very much. I hope you all have an absolute amazing day, and I look forward to speaking or seeing with you soon.